Thank you. We are November 12th, Committee of the Whole, Finance, Administration, and Communication. We have all council members present, except for Council Member Salahuddin, who is also present but online. And we have, looks like 5 agenda items. There are some briefings, there are some actions requested, and we will begin with our Director of Human Resources. And the first item is 2025 pay plan update. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Fields, and good afternoon, Council. I'm Catherine Laird, your HR Director, and I'm here today to discuss the 2025 pay plan updates to include cost of living adjustments and new or updated classifications, all effective January 1st of 25. I'm seeking your approval to place these pay plan updates on council consent on December 3rd. And what we are seeking is to update 11 of the city's 14 pay plans for the 2025 COLA percentages. 7 of the pay plan updates are in accordance with the union contract, and 4 pay plan updates are for non-represented employees. I would also like to note that all COLAs for the union CBAs follow the 2024 CPI Consumer Price Index for workers for the Seattle-Tacoma-Bellevue area. Each union contract specifies what CPIW they will follow, either first half or June to June, and all contracts have an identified COLA maximum ceiling or ceiling of 5%. So there's a lot of information I'm going to go over right now. So for today's presentation, I'm going to break it out into 3 separate parts. The first part is COLA for union contracts. The second part is for non-represented pay plan changes. And the third, I'm going to talk about the classification changes. So all this information is in your council packet that you can review as I discuss each part. And a lot of the information I have too with regards to the pay plan changes are in red line, so that should hopefully help. All right, so part 1, union COLAs. And this is on page 2 of your agenda memo. So for the Redmond City Hall Employees Association, that is also known as RESHA, we're looking at the RESHA pay plan as well as the RESHA supplemental pay plan. So the COLA adjustment for them will be 4.2%, which is, again, in accordance with their contract, and they have the first half CPIW, which came to 4.2%, of course. And then you, council, had approved their contract back in 2022, just so you know. We have police lieutenants, police support, and police support supplemental pay plans. Each of them will receive 4.2% COLA adjustment. Again, also in accordance with their CPA, they follow the first half CPIW as well. And then finally, fire support. They will receive 3.6% COLA adjustment, also in accordance with their CPA. They follow June to June CPIW, which came in at 3.6%. So that's part 1. Part 2, I'm going to talk about non-represented pay plan changes. These include the executive, non-represented, and non-represented supplemental and general supplemental pay plans. So we are requesting that these pay plans receive a 4.2% COLA adjustment based upon first half CPIW at 4.2%. We recommend first half instead of June to June, as first half gives a better reflection of inflation over a 6-month period of time, while instead of a 1-month period. And we have been working to get union contracts on a first half basis, and so we wanted to do the same for the non-reps. For the executive E-pay plan changes, due to local salary market impacts that affected police and fire, HR staff conducted a market analysis that resulted in the need to create a new salary band for the police chief and the fire chief, so they'll be in a new band, and also a new band for the deputy police chief and the deputy fire chief. And this is reflected in the E-pay plan for the executive, so you can see that movement that has occurred. Additionally, the city attorney and deputy city attorney classifications were added to this pay plan. Now, I know that they are on your, they're part of the budget process, and we're requesting those classifications. So if these FTEs are not approved, then they would be removed from the pay plans later. They would not be included on the December 3rd pay plan. But we wanted them in the pay plan now so that if they are approved, we're ready to go with them. All right. The elected official EO pay plan changes. So what we're requesting is, well, let me start. The mayor's current base salary right now is $153,700, which was approved by council on August 8th and went into effect on September 1st. So we're looking to request that the mayor's pay plan be adjusted. And so the EO pay plan right now reflects a red line change to the mayor's salary to $170,000 effective January 1st, 25. This is the amount that was discussed by council on June 25th and July 9th and was the wage most council members were comfortable providing at that time. I sought council's approval to provide this salary change on July 23rd. However, the council wanted to wait to approve pending the salary commission work. I'm now bringing this forward again to you for your approval now that the salary commission work is complete. For 2026, regarding the mayor's salary, I'm also seeking your approval to increase the mayor's base wage by COLA based on first half CPIW with a minimum of 2% and a maximum of 5% effective January 1st, 2026. I'm asking council to approve this increase to the pay plan for two key reasons. One is it will allow HR staff to proactively queue up the pay plan changes in the fall of 2025 for a January 1st, 26 effective date, and that creates efficiency and ease of administrative challenges for us. Council will still be able to approve the 2026 pay plan changes each year before they are effective based upon CPIW. And part 3, classification changes. So there were several classification changes in 5 of the pay plans. Those classification changes have been redlined, and for your convenience, I'll just go through them really quickly. So in the Risha R pay plan, there are 2 new classifications being added. One is the lead systems analyst, and this is to provide lead duties above a senior systems analyst, but not to be at the supervisor level. This will help them, the TIS department, with workflow and prioritization of the work. Grant writer is the other new classification, and this is to retain a technical grant writer to source and apply for grants as a way to find alternative funding. This is a new FTE, and so if this is not approved by council, the classification will be removed. Non-represented pay plan, there are 5 new classifications, 1 existing classification being added back in and 1 title change. So I'll explain that really quick. We have a new construction manager classification. This is to provide for a manager within construction that does not require a professional engineer license, but rather to focus on project management and project management experience. And it opens up the opportunity for internal and external candidate pools without having that PE. Executive department manager and executive department supervisor, so 2 new classifications. These are considered generic manager and supervisor classifications, the same as other departments currently have. And this allows for greater hiring and promotion flexibility. The the communications and marketing manager will be added to the executive department manager job description, and the communications and marketing supervisor will be added to the executive department supervisor job description. So there's no change in pay. It's just it's just changing the title and creating this generic type of classification. Community health manager. This is the community health program. As the community health program expands, we are looking to have a manager oversee portions of this body of work. Again, this is a new FTE, and if it's not approved by council, it will be removed from the pay plan. Grant supervisor, this is to oversee the grant writer and manage other aspects of the grant program. This is a new FTE, and again, if it is not approved, it will be removed from the classification. Police support services. This was a classification that was removed back in 2022, but throughout 2024, it became clear to the police department that they needed the flexibility to hire or promote a supervisor at this level, at the supervisor level, depending upon their staffing circumstances. So this is just adding a classification in that had been removed 2 years ago. And finally, this is just a classification title change. Public Safety Communications Manager, the title was Dispatch Manager. And now, using Communications Manager and Public Safety, it's a more contemporary way to call this title, and it reflects a statewide movement to call dispatchers telecommunicators. So that, and that will be, that's reflected in the police support pay plan as well, that change in classification title. But there's no change in classification level, it's just the title change. Within the executive e-pay plan, as I already mentioned, about the new city attorney and deputy city attorney, so it's just preparation for if council approves those classifications. Under the elected officials EO pay plan, with the salary commission's work being done to the salary commission's, to this council's salary, the grade codes needed to be updated for maintenance within the HR payroll system. This also includes updating the mayor's grade for system maintenance. It's just a code issue. And again, under police support PS pay plan, as indicated already under the manager, dispatchers are now more commonly called telecommunicators. Therefore, the communications dispatch and the lead communications dispatch are being updated to public safety telecommunicator and lead public safety telecommunicator. That's a mouthful. Okay, there you go. These are all the changes that are being brought before you. A couple more things to note. Salary increases. All employees will receive their 2024 COLA % added to their base pay effective January 1st. The 2025 COLA adjustments have been budgeted in the 25-26 biennium budget. And in conclusion, these are the 2025 changes. And again, I'm seeking your approval to place these changes on the council consent for December 3rd.
Thank you, Director. So a lot of that, as you pointed out, we've discussed in the past, or will be discussing in the future during the budget finalization. Right. So most, I think, of what you have summarized very eloquently for us has been discussed. There are maybe a few items and a few questions, so I will start with Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. And yes, I really wanted to double down on that point, so I appreciate that, Councilmember Fields. For the viewing public, this was a huge report of information tonight, but really so much of it has been the work that we've been working toward in collaboration with your department and that you've been leading on in the last year. I also wanted to give you a shout out, Director Laird, because as I read through the material, and of course it's budget season, the work that you've done to standardize and seek standardization on a few really key points with all our represented workers in the city of Redmond really allowed for some consistency when it comes to our values around pay equity in the city. So I really appreciated that as I read through the materials, and thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? I don't see any questions. Are we, so the one item that I took note of is that we did talk about the mayor's salary. We've been sort of having ongoing discussions. I think Director Laird was accurate in the explanations of what we had come to in the past. Is there, this is part of the overall consent. Is there any questions or concerns about that? Any concerns about putting this on consent? I think we're good.
Great, thank you. And I just want to thank also my staff, Mary Grady and Stephanie Lawrenson, for the work that they did. It was a lot of work, and so I just want to give them a huge shout out as well. Thank you.
Welcome, Director. So item 2 is also something that we look at fairly periodically, and I think this is just a report, correct?
It is. This is the impact fee report for 2022. This is a report that we are required by RCW as well as our own Redmond Municipal Code to provide you. We choose to do that after the audit is complete and the numbers will no longer change. We will be bringing to you very shortly the 2023 numbers and then quickly followed by the 2024 numbers. Nita is very busy. But if you have any questions about the current report, we have Nita here to help answer any questions.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Director Cochran and team. I really appreciate the chance to take a look at this. I just wanted to clarify for the viewing public, we did have a bit of a delay in producing these 2022 numbers, as is stated in the memo, but the balances reflected here are obviously not our current balances. We've continued to spend and earn from these funds and continue to do so in the current upcoming biennium, the budget that we're working on now. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? I think that you have council's appreciation, so thank you for providing this information. And we can go to item 3, which is also in the spirit of routine updates and information. It's the quarterly overtime report.
Okay, so we are here with the third quarter overtime report. I will go ahead and hand it over to Daniel to run through the results.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So this is the overtime quarterly report through September 30th from the beginning of the biennium. So right now, citywide overtime is at 11.3 million compared to a 9.1 million budget. So we are over budget, but we've been very aware of that and very proactive in what we've been doing to try to mitigate that. So as always, this is primarily because of fire and police. So specifically, police has seen an uptick in overtime for sound transit that just started this past quarter. And then on fire side is the usual with having mandatory overtime to get all these things covered. So on fire specifically, we've been looking at delaying any unbudgeted expenses and anything unnecessary until the next biennium. We've also looked at, for next year, increasing the overtime budget to better reflect our actual expenses and a contingency reserve. And then we've also looked at the different hiring strategies that you guys, I believe, are aware of moving forward. So we are trying to mitigate that as much as possible. That is a summary of the report.
Council questions? Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I appreciate the report. I noticed that this, what I'd like to share is that I've noticed this came up a couple times and it was discussed in a meeting that I missed, so I apologize if I'm not coming out clearly right now, but the position request for 4 new positions in fire seems related to this overtime report. So what I was wondering is the memo says we've filled a higher number of vacancies so that there's more overtime happening because of the salary gap has closed a little bit. We're using more salaries and wages budget for the purpose of paying staff. And we are therefore using, we're over budget on the overtime. So my question was related to, are we, in addition to the request that came through for the 4 positions in fire, we also have 4 overhire roles in fire. And I was wondering if the report that's been provided to us is inclusive of those 4 overhires, and if not, where can we get kind of an understanding of whether those are being utilized or not?
Certainly, and that is inclusive of the 4 hires.
Okay, is there do we have an understanding, I should say, the 4 overhire positions are currently filled. Is that the correct understanding?
They are filled, but we do have vacancies.
And also have vacancies? Okay.
So part of, I'll add on to that, part of what we're doing to mitigate the overage is some salary savings that are going to lower that overage.
Great. And then the request for the budget was to add 4 whole positions and then retain the overhire positions as well. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Kritzer.
I saw the very great announcement that some of our firefighters had supported response to hurricane relief in recent times. So kudos to them and thank you for that service. I'm curious to know when we deploy to something like that, do we get reimbursed by the federal government for that as well?
Great question. And yes, we do get reimbursed. Unfortunately, it's government, so it does take time to get that reimbursement. So it might not be reflected immediately. It may come in another cycle.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Similarly, on the police topic and the being alerted that it's due to Sound Transit, isn't there some Sound Transit money coming our way as well to cover those expenses?
So unfortunately, we are not getting reimbursed we're not getting reimbursed this year. Sound Transit is evaluating their long-term strategy, and they said that they would not be reimbursing jurisdictions this year. And once they evaluate that long-term strategy, which they are planning to finish it or complete it at the end of this year, they will reevaluate and let us know if they're going to reimburse for next year.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons, police is showing such high in overtime costs.
Okay, I'd love to know a bit more about that
Sure.
number, like how it's different from, say, last year, a couple years look back,
Sure, yeah.
to see what that difference is, because with the amount of travel right now on Sound Transit, it's hard to wrap my head around how that much overtime is needed.
We can definitely get you those numbers, yeah.
Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields, and thank you, Council Vice President, because that's where my question was. And when we're taking a look at the numbers, we're seeing both fire and police, they're both roughly $1 million over. However, the percentage on the police is far higher percentage. When I took a look down a little bit further, and it was actually a breakout over the years between 2017 till now, and we look at police department overtime by driver, we see, policing. However, it's been kind of, and then it's got a significant jump. And I heard the justification being for Sound Transit, and again, really, I mean, like, is that the only driver that we have for why police budget is so much more?
That
Just
is
because of that.
Sorry. So you're right. That is primarily due to the Sound Transit. To what I know, and which we can get more information from police department, there are 2 staff or 2 cops that are fully overtime, fully scheduled for the Sound Transit and who are doing overtime. So in the last quarter, the third quarter is when we saw this biggest increase, and that is primarily due to Sound Transit overtime. But we can definitely get you some clarity and data on how much that is due to Sound Transit.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, because when I break down roughly $1 million, and I think about FTEs and FTEs with overtime, the numbers still don't quite add up to $1 million. And appreciating that there are other factors as well.
Yeah, there are definitely other factors, but the primary reason is Sound Transit, and we can definitely get you that data.
Thank you, Haritha.
Before we go to Councilmember Kritzer, just a clarification. When you said that they're going to reconsider next year about reimbursement, does that mean they're going to consider reimbursement for things moving forward, or is there a retroactive element to that? And did we not know that? Did we not know that they were going to reimburse, or is that a surprise?
It's definitely a surprise to what I know. I can get more information from Chief Lowe, but what I know is initially we did thought that we were going to get reimbursed, but then there was a lot of executive leadership changes in Sound Transit that kind of delayed our agreement process as well. And then we got this message from them saying that we are not going to reimburse and we're going to reevaluate and let you know. Now, I don't think it will be retroactive, and I don't even know if we're going to get reimbursed next year, so.
Okay. Well, the only thing I have to say to that is implied contract, but I'll let the legal people handle that.
Yes.
Councilmember Kritzer.
I would say I'm certainly surprised to hear this as well, because it sounded like, especially if we deployed services, assuming reimbursement, I would just be interested to know how we in the future might avoid something like that. Also, just a flag, I guess, for our budget conversations later today is that we're currently budgeted 2 officers that are supposed to be funded by Sound Transit, and I don't think we should budget for those if we're not going to be reimbursed by them for those. So curious to know a little more about that.
We will provide you with an update this evening on where we are in the process of negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. Another clarifying question. The overtime report doesn't mention a mental health professional position, which I understand is not filled at this time. Is that correct? Is that why it's not included?
That question?
The mental health professional position in police?
That is budgeted in 2025, 26.
My understanding was we lost Susie Kroll, so that was an open position. Is that not correct?
There is that position, but I'm not sure if it is vacant still or not. We can get that information.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested in that. And the concern I had with that was when we talked about it, I think 2 years ago, it was because her work was overloaded, and I wanted to understand sort of the need for the second position that's being asked for, if that position is currently vacant. So, thank you.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. Just circling back to the police topic, when we have that discussion about how much of that money, the overtime money, I would love to also know what kinds of things they're responding to, if they're really busy, if they're just patrolling, how much of that is a need, because to Council President Kritzer's point, if Sound Transit is not going to reimburse, then I'm of the same mind as she is.
Any other council questions? I have one last question. When you were briefing us on the firefighters, I think what I heard you say is that you're going to extrapolate or project the current overtime rate for the next budgeting cycle, but I also heard that we're taking steps to mitigate it. So is that like the proverbial suspenders and a belt, or what are we doing there?
If I understand your question. We are definitely taking steps. We have some stuff that it's not quite ready for prime time. We're working with the city. We've had meaningful conversations with finance. We put together some proposals. We've run it through the city. So there's still some tweaks that we feel we need to do to attack this issue from multiple fronts. One being a staffing issue, which would have an impact on that overtime cost. Because you were gracious to approve the 4 positions at Station 17, probably what's not recognized is the fact that when we staff 17, Station 17, we'll be able to realize about $1 million savings as well to the city by not running into the fire district, or not having the fire district run into the city proper. So again, a couple of different fronts to mitigate this problem, but we're not quite ready to bring that forward to City Council.
Gotcha. Great, thank you. Anybody else? It looks like we're good. I called that a routine report, but I'm not sure I would classify that as routine anymore. So we can close that item and move on.
All right, one more thing to add on this item. I just wanted to just follow with the way that I look at the work that we're doing to improve how we look at this issue is to first learn how to control what we can control. And that's sort of the lane that we're in right now. That's the budget, that's the learning to plan for overhires, and the things that we can do to help inform the budget side of things. And then there's the things that we can't control. And once we get to understanding what's left in that bucket, it's to, I think, start applying some of the mechanisms that the chief has in other jurisdictions or things that we're seeing be successful. So I first want to just at least from a finance perspective, figure out how to control what we can control.
Great.
That's where we are.
Thank you, Director Cochran. So we can move to item 4, which is, I'll have to put these glasses on, adoption of an ordinance for budget amendment number 5.
All right, so this is our final budget adjustment for 23-24 budget. We have, this is basically recognizing some new revenue, which is coming through grants and some corrections. Haley Zurcher, our interim finance manager, is here if you have any questions on this.
Yeah, I think that's the end. If you guys, unless you all have questions.
Councilmember Stewart.
Sure. Just the majority of these are actually recognition of new revenue through grant resources, something that we're going to attempt to invest in more in the next biennium as we bring on the additional grant writers. So always happy to take on an adjustment like this that recognizes new investments in the city of Redmond. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? I think everyone's done their homework on this. I think we're prepared and happy with this, so.
So this is, just wanted to let you guys know that this is going to be on consent on November 19th. Just let us know if you have any questions or concerns.
I see thumbs up. I see.
It was a request by Ms. Nara.
5 thumbs up, please.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then go to our last item on the agenda. It's the budget process monthly update.
Yeah, I packed a lot in here, so hold on. So first of all, I have Wanda Norman here. She is the project manager for our technology projects, one of them being our important project to sort of flip the switch on the collection of credit card payment fees, or our solution for that. So Wanda is here to provide us with an update on this very technically challenging project.
Hello. Okay, there it is. Okay, so in October, we went live with a $5 convenience fee for utilities for IVR and online payments. December 2nd, we'll go live with the parks fee, which will be 2.75% plus 30 cents per transaction. That will go live December 2nd. And then January 2nd, we'll go live with the rest of the systems, pending successful testing with the POS terminals. We've had some challenges in that area, so we think this time around we should be good. So we're hopeful that by January 2nd, we'll be all done and collecting fees from all the systems.
We are very grateful for Wanda's banking background. It's come in very handy for us.
Questions? Councilmember Kritzer.
Just a question on this. So in terms of the different recuperating of credit card fees on, not this one, because what I expected was that overall we would do a percentage credit card fee charge when you use credit card. But I noticed on utilities that it's a flat rate, and just curious if you can speak to that and why that decision was made.
It is regarding visa regulations and how they apply specifically to the utilities. Utilities are governed a little bit different. They're buried way back on page 920 of the language that Wanda found. And so that is why we had to look at them differently than we were able to look at the rest of the fees throughout the city.
Okay, thank you very much. If you're able to share any specific information about that, I've gotten a couple constituent questions about that particular fee. I think it'd be helpful to understand, why it is that we had to do it that way rather than a percentage, which I think most people are used to. And then on this around the recreational fees, can you remind us if people don't want to pay by credit card, or what their options are?
Yeah, they can mail in a check or come in and pay in person with cash.
Okay. I guess.
Cash or check, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. I'm just going to move on to the fiscal policy document, if that's okay.
Oh, let me keep going.
Okay, great.
So if we're good with Wanda, thank you, Wanda.
Okay, and I'll get you that information. It's in the visa rules.
Thank you. So just to touch base, we have provided the information regarding the budget questionnaire. We had 155 respondents, which is an increase over the last couple of years. And we saw a more equal disbursement of support for the different priorities, which is interesting. The other item then is the City of Kirkland. There in your packet is a project information sheet. It's regarding a project that we had in our CIP but recognized for a much lower amount. The City of Kirkland is the lead on this joint facility, which is a tank that we jointly own because of the dissolution of the Rose Hill Water District back in 1994. So we own a portion of that water tank. So the request is to add the cost of that project into the budget. We do have Public Works here with us this afternoon if you have any technical questions about the project.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. I have two questions, most likely for Public Works, if they're able to join us. The project name still refers to this project, and this is one we had discussed earlier in the year with a little bit of confusion. The project name still refers to this as a tank painting and seismic retrofit, but I understand from the description and your introduction, Director Cochran, that this is actually about increasing capacity of the water available to the city of Redmond. Is this project name accurately reflecting the CIP project?
Good evening, council members. Chris Stinger, Deputy Director of the Utilities. Originally, this was the seismic upgrade and painting. However, with the plans and with the inspections, they wanted to capitalize on, if you're going to tear it down anyways, to build capacity for the future. Excuse me.
So in adopting the new CIP, would you like us to change the name of this project to more accurately reflect the current scope of the project?
We could. I'm waiting for project information sheets from Kirkland themselves, along with, took me a little bit to get the new budget for that, but I've been working with them for the past couple of months. But hopefully I can get that so we can entitle it right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We had conversation earlier in the year, as you remember, with our planning commission and some concern around water planning, and it also was reflected once again, as it always is, very highly in our budget survey, which the director just said had more than 150 people complete it. That the drinking water was a #1 concern. Safe drinking water was a #1 concern of our residents. So I would love to see this tell the story of this investment better. And then I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit. The director was able to tell us that there is an increased cost because there is an increased scope, but could you tell us a little bit more about what's driving that?
I would have to get back to you on that once I get the information from Kirkland to get the numbers on that, what's driving it. But from the agreement, I believe Redmond has a 29% share of the overall, and Kirkland has above 50%, but I can get you those numbers.
Thank you.
Other questions on this topic before we move on? I see none.
Right, thank you. The next item is the long-range financial strategy and the fiscal policies. We provided the red line version. Again, we didn't receive any additional suggestions or edits to either of the documents. Some very thoughtful questions and really appreciated. Again, my hope is that this is a work plan item for council as well as myself. For next year, the long-range financial strategy points to the future, and according to the long-range financial strategy, the future is here. It speaks to, the end of the comp plan and light rail and all of these things that a lot has been achieved. And with the update of the comp plan, I'd like to get this document more future-focused again. Same thing with the fiscal policies. We've been developing them over years. We have some different voices, some different levels of detail provided in different portions, and so would like to update them for the city. But happy to have any discussion or suggestions now.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thanks. Just looking at the fiscal policy document and interested to hear the 5-year look-back period for development fees and the credit card fees. We've done a lot of work to adjust everything to CPI, so I'm just wondering what the logic is behind that.
The 5-year period. I don't know. I'd have to check with my former. She's not making eye contact. I am not sure what led to that pace. What I see is a future that hopefully looks different than that. With the level of familiarity that we have developed when internally, when looking at development fees, the modeling that has been done, I'm hopeful that we are not at a 5-year pace. But I can look into what led to that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more on that. And like why 5 years versus 3 years, why that versus something that has an inflationary index, just that whole conversation. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. Back in August, we discussed the opportunity to add in some adjustments to the fiscal policy, and I wasn't sure if you were planning to take those now, in next year, or in a different way. I did submit a Hopper form for that that we discussed at that time. And just to review, the 2 lines to add to the fiscal policy were item 1E and 2B as follows. The general financial goals, new item, they're both new items, so I wanted to see some additions, which was to create a workplace where all employees feel valued and are compensated fairly and equitably for their contributions under general financial goals, new item 1E, and a new bullet under operating budget policies, item 2B, goals for the budget process to ensure pay equity across all departments. And I think we heard earlier from Director Laird that that is definitely clearly an attempt, but this would be an opportunity to align our policy in writing.
I believe that the goal with that item is to develop the language that supports that initiative in the personnel manual, because that is what guides our intention towards staff. The fiscal policies, I am open to taking any suggestions that you feel are needed now or next year. If we are making any revisions now, I want to make sure that they are the revisions that you feel need to be made to support the budget that we are adopting. Otherwise, I look forward to conversation next year on I'm hoping a monthly basis to go through it.
Yes, of course. So just, I'm going to reiterate what Director Cochran said. So in the interest of time, if in fact it can be part of the work plan for next year to update our fiscal or any policy really, but primarily we're talking about fiscal policy, then we should note that, and we can note it tonight, but ensure that we will have discussions in the future. If it does affect the work that we're doing on the budget, I think we should have the discussion tonight. So with that, Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, and I wanted to just follow up on what you mentioned, Director Cochran. So to clarify, council also controls the personnel manual, and we can make changes to that document as well? Because what I understood from our last meeting was that there was some interest in pursuing this addition to the fiscal policies, which would be right back in front of us right now. Mike, and I guess the issue I'm trying to understand is, did that in the background get decided to go to personnel manual instead? With my point to be made is that our largest expenditure in the city is staff. So understanding that they, all staff, of course, to show appreciation and are fairly and adequately compensated is a fiscal policy as well as a statement of philosophy for management. So I would love to see it in fiscal policy.
Did I see a hand over here? No, no, no. Councilmember Kritzer.
I had a different question, but I will respond on that. Just in terms of my recollection, I believe when we talked about it, we talked about looking at the fiscal policies and at the long-range financial strategy so we could discuss any proposals. So this seems like the time to bring it up. I don't think that at the time we had a majority of council that said yes or no in terms of putting that in. So it might be up to Councilmember Fields to get a sense of whether or not people would want to put that in. It also sounds like, from what I'm hearing from Director Cochran, that perhaps the staff's recommendation is to put it in the personnel manual rather than in these policies. So just wanted to recap on that, and of course, Councilmember Fields can lead on that. Can I ask a question while I have the microphone?
Of course.
Okay, on a different topic, I wanted to go back to the questions around the development user fees, and was curious, just in terms of these changing these policies to the every 5 years or every 2 years, is this at a minimum, as in we could review for other reasons versus kind of being bound to wait for 5 years or 2 years or just to be tied to CPI increases?
Yeah, we do ad hoc studies all the time. If we are looking at a new policy, it would be something that is flexible and gives us the opportunity to look at them every 2 years at a minimum or more often as issues arise. I don't think it's a policy that we need to adjust now. I would hope that we can get to that next year, but we can if you want.
So I'm going to pick up the issue that Council President brought up, and I would agree with, I think Councilmember Anderson has made a pretty solid point about fiscal policy and how this is under, yes, certainly under the personnel work, but also it is a fiscal impact, and it does need, in my mind, needs to be discussed. The question is this something that we need to discuss this year, or can this be something that we move to next year's work? And I'm going to go back to Councilmember Anderson and get her opinion on that.
Because it was 2 small additions, I would love to see it before the budget adoption. That is my personal preference. My other request would be to get the response back in writing from staff to that, and I just distributed that Hopper form back out to council with the 2 changes that are proposed.
Great.
Thanks.
All right, so I saw hands. Council, I don't remember who was first. Councilmember Forsyth.
Sure. Thank you. I also remember having that conversation, and given that it is the trajectory that we have been on for setting salaries, I am very interested in seeing it in this document. I am also interested to hear the why of, why in the salary or why in the personnel manual versus our fiscal policies. It seems like it fits well, but I don't live in fiscal policies. So I'm interested in seeing these 2 items brought into the document, but also interested in the conversation as well.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much. I think the same is true, which was true at the beginning of the budgeting process, which was that there's actually probably a few areas worth deliberate study in our fiscal policies, and we're here tonight actually hoping to be at the very tail end of our budget process and our deliberations. And if we could go back time, it'd be really great to have this this study and then deliberation of our policies at the beginning of the process. But I think that at this point, putting it in next year for full deliberate study is something that I'm more interested in, just to make sure that we don't piecemeal the situation. So that's what I'm more interested in at the moment. Thanks.
So I think maybe we do a thumbs up on this, because I think we've heard arguments. Well, let me ask it in two parts. Can we just get a sense of how many council members agree that this should be considered to be in our fiscal policies? I see, I'm not sure what our online member is saying, but I see 6 in this room. So I think we have that. And then breaking it down to timing, is this something we should do during, before we complete the budget? Or is there a sense that we should do, as Councilmember Stewart described, a longer, more in-depth analysis? And are you raising your hand, or are you, yes, Councilmember Forsyth?
Be interested to hear from Kelly's perspective, Director Cochran's perspective, what the conversation would look like in the beginning of the year versus is this something that we can just add now? Is there more that we don't know that we should be considering, I guess is the question.
Don't know what we don't know. The way that I look at this suggestion request is that it is very philosophical. It's a great guiding philosophy, great principle. When I look at the fiscal policies, they are things that I can show you that I complied with. And I have no way of showing you that I met that policy. There's so much that goes into it, from bottom to top, top to bottom. I can say if it's in the personnel manual, that is our intention, and if a staff member ever believes that that is not true, we have, something for them to fall back on. If it's in the long-range financial strategy, there's, in there is some descriptions of how we look at salary and benefits and people, and it's more philosophical, it's more strategic. So that's my why. I think in other parts of the organization, there is more influence over us meeting the intent of the request from the HR perspective and adhering to the personnel manual and all of the insane work that Catherine has gotten done for all of us this year. That's really the avenue to make sure that it all comes together. Unfortunately, I can't control Catherine. So that's my answer. It's not that we can't deal with it being a policy. It's not that putting a policy in would impact this budget. It wouldn't change anything. It's certainly, it's a statement, but I don't know if I did it. I mean, I feel like I did, but I don't know.
Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields. Would it, and this is a question for us, would it be appropriate or satisfy the intent of what we want to have it then mentioned if the policy lived in the personnel policy, and then to have it referenced in the first few pages of like 5 and 6 around the long-range financial strategy blurb, why we do what we do, where that's a bit more conceptual and philosophical, as Director Cochran had referred to it as. Would that meet the need of what it is that we're looking to do?
Councilmember Anderson.
I can do conceptual and philosophical all the livelong day. And I think it should be on all of those policies to be consistent across the city to reflect our commitment to equity. And what I heard from Director Cochran that concerns me is that you said you can't do something. So the first thing that comes to mind is, what can we do to help you with that? And that sounds to me like a conversation to be had on a larger conversation, perhaps next year. The ask was to add 2 sentences, and they are direct adds. So to me, that seems simple, and it sounds more challenging than it is, which is why I requested if I could get in writing where that's going. Currently, it went into the abyss, and I didn't get a response on that. So would love to see that. And you have some council support across the table on it as well. Thanks.
So I'm going to just interject for a second here. We can update our policies at any time. So is there a scenario or a solution where we can add these sentences with the understanding that we're going to align that with policies across the city, and, as Councilmember Anderson said, help establish that criteria or those measurements or those things that say, yes, we're meeting those policies. Like, for one, it's in the personnel document. So that's one. Is that a possibility? Sure. And I actually I'm hoping that the rest of the council thinks that's a great idea and we should just do it. But I'm certainly open to hearing other views. Do we want to just do that? Councilmember Kritzer.
I'm sorry, can you clarify exactly what what are you expecting Director Cochran to do?
We add the 2 sentences into the policy, and we have council leadership provide us a commitment that we will then discuss this in the work plan for next year, and if we need to update our fiscal policies at that time, or help align with policies across the city, we can do that.
I would say my preference, and I don't know what other council members think, would be if the intent is to have in the fiscal policies and long-range financial strategy a reference to our commitment to pay equity, I might ask that Director Cochran take a look at the language and suggest something that would work in here before we vote on it. I think that might be helpful, just as to think about making sure we put it in the place where it makes the most sense. I'm not against us reiterating our commitment to pay equity. But I'd be interested to know what your preference would be on kind of where this would go if we are going to put it in here.
Other discussions, other thoughts? Director Cochran, can you do that?
I can do that.
Then I say, based on the looks across the room, that's where we're at.
All righty.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm not done.
Oh, I meant on that topic.
Yep, done there. The few extra things to check on. The packet that you received included some information, follow-up information for Councilmember Forsyth in regards to the exemption threshold for business license. We are queued up to talk about this item this evening, but I just wanted to see if there was any questions, any additional information. Haritha had provided you also via email the presentation. We're not planning to have that queued up tonight, but I'm just wondering if we need it or if we're feeling kind of solid on where we're coming from.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Thanks. Thanks for pulling us all together. I know we talked about revisiting the policies early next year. So I just wanted to clarify for everyone that, yes, this is a change that we'll be making. It won't take effect until January 2026 due to the state complexities. But there are policy decisions that we can make and should make, I believe, about equity in our business license system that we will talk about hopefully in Q1.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. This is I've gone back to the email a couple of times on this and gleaned new understandings of the situation kind of every time. One of the things that's been stated again and again is that for the motivation for this is a recommendation from the Association of Washington Cities in collaboration with other cities. Could you share with the public a little bit more of the why behind that? Why would the AWC, why would cities like ours recommend such a change?
So, oh, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Director Nara.
Typically, AWC updates our threshold every 4 years, and we have updated our threshold in 2019, and now they are going back to the legislature to recommend increase our threshold to 4,000. Now, that is the minimum threshold that we have to follow or adopt, and the city can determine if we want to go up, but that is a threshold that we have to adopt if they get an approval from Washington State Legislature.
And can you say more for the, remind us about, because we actually are planning to audit our business licenses. We suspect that there's missing revenue and all of that. So our documents have a little bit of the impact. Could you tell us what the impact that will have on kind of the intended revenue we were hoping to generate in the next year through the audit or the next biennium?
There are multiple, there is a big scope in the business license audit that we are hoping to add. One of them is businesses which are not paying, and also some policy changes that we are expecting that would kind of increase our revenue as well. For example, home-based businesses and anything else that you would like to add, Kelly?
Yeah, AWC has taken the lead on a lot of the intricacies of our business license programs from across the state. There is, especially after the pandemic, just complexities that arise if you work at home, and I'm in Bothell when I'm at home, but here I'm in Redmond, and that's just one example of a complexity. The other is this minimum exemption threshold and the impacts that that has on diverse businesses, home businesses. So we have been taking the lead and working cooperatively with them on all of the work that they've been doing. We are a member of that group. We participate in the conversations with that this team has been leading. There are a lot of their efforts that they are hoping are applied consistently across the state to bring some, regulation to a business that's kind of all over the place. As you've seen, it's hard to do comparisons. So that's why we participate in AWC. It's a slow, conservative, but thoughtful process.
Thank you.
Great. You got one more item, right?
I do. Baseline budget. So we also sent out some information about City Council's baseline budget and adjustments that we had made since it was provided to you in the preliminary budget. So we have increased the salaries for council based off the recommendation from the Salary Commission. We've also increased professional services to continue with your neighborhood communication or community events, and adjusted travel and training back to pre-pandemic levels. So I just want to make sure, is there any questions about council's baseline budget?
Questions? Councilmember Kritzer. Oops, sorry.
I'll just make a comment, which is I had previewed this, I think, at Council Talk Time many months ago that we were looking when they were developing the baseline budget, Council Vice President Forsyth and I, and had looked at kind of the historical data to give some recommendations. Then we also re-reviewed this last week along with Councilmember Fields as well. So I think the numbers that are in here should be reflective of those conversations, just to kind of right size based on what we're actually seeing council use. And I think one of the big things that we talked about in particular was around travel training, making sure that we have enough since we had done a deep reduction during the pandemic and not kind of come out of that in the last budget. But now we have a lot of council members that might want to go get educated, and looking back at historicals, we saw that we used to have a bigger budget for that, and it's a good thing for us to be able to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. When we had the conversation about council benefits earlier this year, there was an option for us to take cash instead. Will that also be an option for the healthcare benefit?
We have budgeted the council benefits with the assumption that everyone will take advantage. So there is coverage there for whatever options you choose.
Will an individual be able to opt out and receive cash instead?
I am not sure what the policy is, but I can check for you.
Because that's currently what I think happened with our benefits adjustment this year.
I don't recall.
If we have healthcare somewhere else, that is a lost opportunity for compensation to the council member. So, thanks.
Councilmember Kretzer.
I appreciate the issue being raised, and it's too bad our HR director doesn't seem to be here anymore. But I don't recall that, so I think we'll have to look.
Double check for you tonight.
Yeah, I think I would have remembered.
Great.
But
Anything else?
That is it. I just wanted to make sure that you've got everything that you need for this evening. And otherwise, we're just planning to kind of launch right into council deliberation items, as long as that's all right with you.
Great, thank you. So one last thing from my observation during this meeting, and I think Councilmember Anderson makes sort of a concerning point where a council deliberates or discusses or considers something, and then, of course, we're all very busy, and then there's a gap of time, and then it comes back as a decision that council was not part of. So I don't think that's intentional by the executive office or council, but it is uncomfortable when that happens. I've seen that not just in finance stuff, but in other parts of our work. So I don't know if that's something we need to take up in our work next year, have a checklist, have open items, make sure that we don't drop that. And that is an uncomfortable feeling when a decision is made that you thought you were going to have input to. So that's all I'm saying. Councilmember Kretzer.
thank you for those comments. I appreciate them. I would say respectfully on something like benefits, we all voted on that. So we all had the materials of what we were voting on, and we all could read what the materials were.
Sorry, I should have been more clear. I was not talking about benefits. I was talking about fiscal policy, and that we had a previous discussion on fiscal policy, and then that decision looked like it was made without council. So I'm going back a few agenda items, not benefits. I agree with you. Anything else? Nothing? We are adjourned. Thank you.